So
we talked a little bit about 1154, and when we talk about a renewable portfolio, we talk mostly about solar, and talk a little bit more about clean energy and how that plays into an RPS.
It was said earlier that in order, well, let me just back up for a second. I think the mindset is whatever it takes to get off of foreign oil. I think that's what we have to look at. And within that mindset, there's got to be a mix. There's going to be nuclear. There's going to be coal. There's going to be clean coal. There's going to be gas. There's going to be solar. There's going to be wind. There's going to be biomass. There's going to be all of it. So in my opinion, I'm not saying that solar is the caveat. It's not the answer to all. But I think whatever it takes to get off of the dependence on others and other states for our coal or foreign oil, I just want to address it in that vein, is that the idea is to, bring it on. If we have something clean, it's non-polluting, and it's readily available, then I say we should go for it and get everybody in the mix.
what was the question again?
I know I got out.
Clean technologies as part of the RPS. Yeah, I mean we need a mix, and in Florida we do have a good mix. We have biomass is definitely a viable. Probably biomass and solar are probably the two most viable alternatives in Florida. I mean algae has promise. A lot of people are looking into algae. There's waste heat is another one. I mean we have one of our large fertilizer manufacturers here in Florida. Produces a lot of waste heat, so I mean that's another viable technology. When you say clean, I kind of I get a little offended by that because people like to put nuclear in clean, and nuclear is I don't know. I mean I think we have a need for nuclear, but I wouldn't categorize it as clean. So there are a lot of other technologies that we can use in our RPS in Florida other than solar that could play major contributions to the RPS. It'll have a major contribution to the RPS.
Without distribution, with just the farms and the utility companies, how do you see that having an effect financially on the construction market and the building market, if at all, here in Central Florida?
Without distributed generation?
Mm-hmm. Just as it's being posed right now. Do you see that having a negative, a positive, or a neutral effect on the building industry and the construction industry here?
I wouldn't say it would be. I don't think it would be a very positive effect. I mean, I think distributed generation would be necessary to be able to, because most of the builders are going to do small to medium-sized commercial systems, residential systems, stuff like that. Without programs that take that into account, I don't think that the builders would be and the financial. I mean, you need for the financial thing, you need long-term contracts, 20 to 15, 20 years, so that you can encourage private monies to come in. And if somebody has a 15 or 20-year contract with a utility, private lending would come into place because they see a secure contract. So the private bankers and the money people would come into Florida and create a marketplace, basically, because we need the financial people in here to create a marketplace. Without them, we're not going to have one. But you need, for the builders, we need to have that distributed generation as part of the mix. I'm not saying it would be nothing, but if we had an RPS with just strictly large systems, it would be a little bit, but I don't, see it affecting the builders in a very positive way.
I think that it would have a negative effect on it if there was no distributed generation because, the return of investment would be a little bit longer. It would take years, over 10, 20 years, for these residential systems to get back the money they paid for the system. And the net metering plus that OUC offers gives a 5-year return of investment and just makes business sense for these residential customers to buy the system.
What financial mechanisms need to be put in place to build a sustainable RPS program that will actually function and work?
Well, I think we could do what I would consider a public's benefit fund. And I think it was brought up earlier. I think if a public's benefit fund was tied to that, where all the Floridians were paid or pay into it, I think the return on their investment over the long haul, well, not even the long haul, depending on where the utility rates are going. But I think if we did a public's benefit fund where everyone would to pay into it, then everybody could benefit from it. That would spur on the investors to come in to provide the funding that's going to be needed, because behind every good idea you're going to need to have some type of funding source. But this would be kind of self-funded too. It's in my opinion, where you come to funding this is it's almost like the cost recovery fund. Utilities collect buried within your utility bill, where billions of dollars are collected. These monies could be also spent for folks, for Floridians, to install the systems on their homes and on their buildings.
Well,
so I think it could come from a public's benefit fund. But again, you run the risk of calling it a tax. And gosh,
Everyone hates that name.
But I like the syntax. That was a great idea. We could call it a syntax. So I'm all for that.
Well, we're running out of time, so I want to open questions to the floor for the panel. Does anyone have a question for the panel?
First of all, let me thank, I'm an OUC customer, so I want to thank Jennifer for the programs and, of course, Dr. Clinton. We were talking about funding this. There's plenty of money, and I think this is being discussed already, in the pension funds. And at 2.5 gigawatts at today's prices, I believe that would be about $10 billion a year that they would have to invest. And that's probably peanuts for some of these pension funds. So I think probably 2.5 gigawatts of just PV would probably be justifiable, although maybe some ears don't want to hear that.
This is a question that is probably a small piece of the whole program here, but because you're contractors, we always address this internally in our public sector. Putting PVs on roofs. It's very frowned on. Our roofs we have a portfolio that's, 30, 40 years old in some cases, some new buildings. Structure's not there for it. So there's this struggle internally. Do you put PVs on roofs or do you not? We have over 1 million square feet in the county of roof space, and the energy efficiency side of our organization says, well, put them on the roofs. And the operations side says no, because you don't want to increase your leak rate, your maintenance, and other things. What is your philosophy or approach to PVs on roofs and the builders and the owners that say they don't want them on roofs?
Well, there's new technology right now that is offered on racking systems that don't penetrate roofs, and that's being widely used by some of the schools because they have a lot of concerns about maintenance as well. And we've been using those racking systems.
Easily findable on the websites?
Yeah, self-ballasting systems, I think, is what she's talking about. In addition to that, I think that with everything having to do with sustainability, renewable energy as well, not everything is applicable to every situation. So just because we say put it on roofs doesn't mean every single solitary roof here in Central Florida needs to have a PV system on it. Some situations it makes sense and some not so much.
From a contractor's point of view, you have a lot of roof penetrations on your commercial roofs and you're in your homes. You have air handlers on commercial roofs. There's a lot of penetrations. If you install it properly, you're not going to have a problem. And there's engineering that will meet the Florida building code and the wind code. So I don't see leaking as a problem. Now, if you've heard that leaking, anybody, a facilities manager, that's what his concern is. But that concern can be easily overcome by getting a warranty or getting a roofer involved or whatever you have to do, seal up that roof properly, give the warranty on it, and move on. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, roof spaces are, a lot of commercial buildings. We have a lot of commercial buildings you can put, 50, 100 kW systems, We got quite a few commercial buildings that we could put PV on. Not every residence is perfectly sited for large PV, but I mean most residences you can get at least 2 to 5 kW on, and we have a lot of good available. I mean we're not going to have when Navigant did their study, they incorporated rooftops in their study as part of the PV mix, because we won't get to our PV mix just by available land or usable land. We will not. So we have to use rooftops. So that's, rooftops are, I mean, and like Dave says, if you get the right contractors involved, it's not an issue. We have very few problems with roof leaks. I mean, compared to the amount of work we do, it's less than 1% of the jobs we do that have roof leaks. Nobody's perfect. We're all human beings, so we make mistakes occasionally, but roof leaks are not, a big holdback to moving PV forward, I don't think.